Evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike here with Alex, coming to you from GreenDragonCVR in Woodbridge to talk about video games, or the people who ruin them today, apparently.
Yes, actually, that's where we're going with today's topic is the people who are ruining video games currently. Yep.
Professional ruiners.
Professional destroyers of...
You may have heard over the past weeks of a Canadian consultancy firm called Sweet Baby Inc. I'm sure you have if you're watching something like this on the internet.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting that we were discussing this 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, I think.
Yep.
And I did not expect it to become such a mainstream topic of discussion, eh?
No, I mean, we had, stumbled upon Sweet Baby Inc., and they're not, the only consulting or destroying firm out there.
I think on February 8th we had that conversation 4 weeks ago, actually.
But we stumbled upon them and just thought, so this is one of the companies that's doing this work, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And, we knew there was more. We didn't expect the story to blow up like it has in the last, couple of
creates an interesting opportunity, right?
Yeah.
To give our 2 cents about it, because
absolutely,
to my estimation, man, the point is entirely missed by all parties participating in the conversation.
Yes, I have to agree. I find a lot of the discourse I see online between both sides, arguing about this thing, it seems like, the point is like totally lost on there.
Yeah, I think so too. It seems that pushback is on part of like so-called pro-consumerist parties who fancy that, ESG and diversity is contrary to consumer interest primarily, and that's the nature of the grievance here. And I think that line of reasoning is exactly the problem. Yeah, it's what leads us to AAA game developers soliciting the services of companies like Sweet Baby Inc. in the first place, right? The same temperament that would lead a developer to query like Redditors for advice on how to balance their game.
Yeah, it's true. I've been saying this for a long time that I disagree with companies making games and saying that they want community input and trying to work with the people who are going to play it. Like, I know it's more of a thing with sort of like multiplayer games or co-op games, stuff that you play with people or online or whatever. But at the end of the day, it kind of just destroys the whole thing of art being made by somebody, a creator, somebody with an idea. Like, I think that's it's the same thing whether you're consulting, which is outsourcing your story or idea to somebody else, whether it be a consulting firm or a subreddit of people. At the end of the day, it's just more noise that probably shouldn't be in a creator's head.
That's right. And if the question is what's the real problem with a consultancy firm like Sweet Baby Inc., I think there's a two-part answer, and the first is exactly what you said. It's outsourcing the concept you endeavor to create.
Yeah, it's like is a cancer to your idea.
It's a violation of artistic integrity, right? Like, the very nature of art is that it involves a conception born in the mind of an artist and communicated to matter outside of his mind. You form matter with your idea. That's the essence of making, in distinction from action or knowing or any other mode of human engagement with the world, right? That's what makes it art. And suppose you're a guy who conceives a cathedral, you surely can enlist other people to help you execute that idea.
Right.
That's perfectly coherent.
The builders,
you certainly can't execute it yourself, right?
No. Yeah.
The idea of artistic conceptions being executed by multiple persons is not new, and I don't think that should be something challenging for people to understand in this context either. But supposing you were the person conceiving the thing and you were not capable of conceiving it yourself, and you had to enlist another party to finish the conception for you, then you failed in your capacity as a conceiver, an artist, somebody who gives birth to a new form to be implanted in matter after the fact, right? Yeah. So I think in the first place, like you just said, that's the problem with this. Whether you're outsourcing, the creative integrity of your concept to Redditors or to a consultancy firm, a politically motivated consultancy firm. Here, at this where this is concerned, it doesn't make a difference, right? At the end of the day, it's a violation of the integrity of your concept. If what makes it art is the way that your idea regulates matter outside your mind, now your idea fails to exercise the kind of regulation it should. You've just outsourced that function.
Exactly.
And so that's the first problem. And again, I think there's a marked difference between outsourcing, like motion capture work visual, literally anything other than the concept of the game and the writing, I think.
Yeah, I agree, right?
Like,
that's the thing. That's
anything else. Come on, man. That is the game. That's what you're making.
Yeah.
Now you're not even making your own thing. You're just what? You're like a.
That's the thing, and not to say a game or something art can't be made by multiple people. Let's say the idea came from me and you, and we were making it
sure,
together.
You can collaborate. Sure.
Exactly, it could
That's
work.
Possible.
But when you just like the consulting thing, or like a subreddit, like your group of people, the community, whatever the heck you want to call it, is that's just like a third party you're inviting, right? That's not the same as, hey, we're gonna make this thing. We have this cool idea, and we'll bounce ideas off each other and come up with what works, with our vision in the end.
I think so. That's right.
It's a totally different thing, I think, right?
The difference is that the person you're trying to include in the creative process is extrinsic to the concept. That's
right. Yeah.
But I think it becomes even more greasy when the people being brought on board, it's not only just Redditors, let's say, but they're actually doing it for money, right?
Yeah, it's even worse.
Then it's even worse. Then any question of there being any question of the participation being for the good of the work is foreclosed. It's not possible here. It's
you know what a lot of it is too that we I'm not sure if people really touch on, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it, is that they say in today's climate of things where it's very easy to say a wrong word that might offend somebody, or say have something that's a little bit sensitive or out of touch. So they say that these consulting firms that they hire not only work with them changing their story or narrative or characters, but also checking over things to make sure it's not going to offend anybody.
Yeah, I think I said before that's
too,
a two-part answer, right? People say I've noticed a lot of the defenders of these consultancy firms say things like consultancy firms have been around for a long time, and it's true, they have, and they suck ever since they've been around for the reason we just described. That's not new. Outsourcing your ideas always makes you a bad artist. You suck. You should get a day job, bro. Stop bothering us with this. But I think a unique aspect of the problem now is the politics that are bound up in the mission to rewrite the scripts of games, or even bound up in the desire of AAA developers to have their scripts rewritten more nefariously. Yet still, that's something the journalists are right about. It's not the fault of these people. This is an anecdote, but I think it's pertinent. I watched this Netflix documentary about the makers of Oxycontin, or whatever it's called.
Oxycontin,
And these people, they knowingly marketed an opiate that they knew would lead to addiction and death and all of this stuff. And they were, I think they got sued. They had to pay somebody, but at the end of the day, they were still rich. And the moral of the story is that they were taken to court, and they were found guilty. But at the end of the day, bro, they were meeting a need that was demanded by the market, and that the legal structure they were operating within totally allowed them to meet.
Take advantage of that.
They weren't breaking any rules. What's the problem?
So where's the problem?
Who's at fault for?
Is it
who's
people
at fault?
exploiting it to make money?
They're playing by the rules, man.
Exactly.
They're not breaking any rules.
Maybe the rules are effed up, right?
The rules are messed up. Yeah, sure, they're greasy, but that's almost that's such low hanging fruit.
It's almost
it's not even interesting to observe that these people are greasy. Of course they are. But the real interesting thing is that you have a system that solicits this kind of reaction, right? It wants people to do these kinds of things. It doesn't matter if you profit enormously off the misery of other people. It's one giant example of that on a global scale every single day. I'm sure more people now would agree with that than ever, right? So I think the point I'm trying to make is is it really the consultancy firm that's culpable for this? Yeah, I mean, they're greasy, just like I said over there. It's unquestionably.
But they found a market to exploit,
they're
right?
Greasy, bottom-dwelling urchins, bro. Those
100%.
people are vile. Like, what you do is...
But they found an avenue of exploitation.
But you're meeting a need that somebody is requesting, right? Like, they come... I'm sure they don't go to Square Enix like, hey, guys... want us to work for you, right? Like,
I think they do, but
I'm certain that they were called,
maybe.
Where do you contact Square Enix? You know what I mean?
But also a tactic of theirs, and they've openly said that, is to bully studios and people into, there's no backlash if you don't use us.
But they don't do this individually. They have the weight of the institution behind them. They go to Game Developers Conference. They have all of these, without getting into it too deeply, the weight of the institution is behind them. You know, that's all there is to say about it. And for that reason, if there is some kind of moral culpability to assign, it's to to the broader economic structures that brought us here in the first place. That's what I mean. There's another way in which the people talking about this are totally missing the point, you know?
Yeah.
Games journalists are also saying, you think that, diversity is responsible for the closure of these studios and not capitalism? And at the end of the day, they're exactly the same things. You don't realize you're an agent of those economic structures, right? You're not putting diversity into a game because you believe in it. And I don't even think there's such a thing to believe in, but we'll get to that. Yeah. You're putting it there because somebody paid you to.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody leaves that unsaid. They take this moral high ground as though they're doing anything other than trying to sell something to more people.
Exactly.
You know, like, man, you are capitalism. That's what you do. That's why this is objectionable. And I think that brings us to the second reason why it's gross. Like, there's always been compromised artistic integrity, but these politics are original. And, you know, something you could probably spend hours talking about. But I think the problem with diversity, equity, inclusion politics in general, the idea that we should have this society that's, that everybody can participate in. It's literally an infinite society that has no limitations and nobody can possibly be excluded from it, right? Like, you know, people
kind of utopia.
Yeah, people have this
gray and boring.
Truly this utopian belief in a universal society. But what is unstated here is the idea of a unlimited thriving multitude takes for granted that behind that thriving multitude is an underlying sameness capable of overriding the differences between all people and things, you know? The nefarious part here is the very notion of an all-inclusive or universal society. An all-inclusive or all-applicable product, something that could possibly be good or taste good or look good or be enjoyed by everyone. Because what these things take for granted is that the differences between the members of those groups have been overcome by what? By your product, you know, by liberal capitalism, which we currently inhabit. The most nefarious aspect of all of this is that it takes for granted that the differences between us are fake and can be overcome by our current social structures at the end of the day. You know?
Which is ridiculous.
The very ones that journalists tell people they should be complaining about. You are the very exemplification of those social structures, my friend. Your idea that you can make a game for everyone is exactly that, right? You know, you're trying to sell people their own image back to them at the end of the day. It's not, it doesn't make you a good person. You have no moral high ground here, right?
Absolutely.
Whether you're trying to do it to women, to some sexually defined group, or to a racial minority, it doesn't change the fact that you're only doing it because you think your way of life is for everyone, and you think there's money to be made at the end of the day.
Of course.
You know?
You're going to sell it to them, right?
In any other context, we'd call that first assumption colonialism, you know? When the British went overseas and they're like, hey, India, you know what would be good if you start to be like us?
Like us, yeah.
When here we ran residential schools in Canada and said you should make Indian kids into Anglos, we called that colonialism.
Yeah.
But now the assumption is that people in Japan, their cultural practices are odious. And when they make something, it should be, what, made to suit ours? That their company should only trade on the stock market?
Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
You actually haven't. Capcom and Square Enix have ESG scores, man.
Yeah, of course.
ESG scores. Like if an investor in the West wants to invest in their stock, they can look up. People here complain about social credit scores in China. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
You know, here, if you're a Japanese company and you want to sell things in the West and your morality is not acceptable to them, what? You're not going to be allowed to? People in Kotaku and Eurogamer are going to write slanderous articles about how you're a barbarian and stuff like this, right? Like, that's, you know,
ridiculous.
It's true that consultancy firms have always been around, but consultancy firms for this like fascistic and totalitarian and utterly racist liberal ideology of diversity have not always been around.
No,
this ideology is recent.
New. Yeah.
And it is capitalism in its most like unbridled and I think exploitative form, you know, because it gets people nodding along for their own exploitation, I think.
Yeah. And there's no defense, or the defense against it is the, you know, moral high ground that like apparently you can't attack, right? You can't say, oh, because like, oh, we're
well, I don't think most people though ever thought to say actually you're the racist, right? Most of the time people are backed into being like, well, maybe I am a little bit racist. No, you're the racist. You're the racist, right?
Yeah.
You believe that everybody should live like what?
Yeah.
Like you, and if they don't, they're bad people. You're racist, man.
Yeah, fair.
Right? And you think I think the most ridiculous part of it all, you know, back in the day there was this, I think it was Rudyard Kipling, some British writer, who wrote this poem called The White Man's Burden, about how it was the job of the white man to go and like civilize Africa and stuff like this. Like take up the white man's burden, teach people to read and bring them medicine and stuff like this, bro. Now these guys, you know, I don't think they realize that they too are embroiled in that same like crusade to what? Civilize the Japanese, civilize the Asians and the people who don't share your bourgeois morality, right? That's
ridiculous.
literally what's going on here. And those are the people trying to browbeat you and me and other people into thinking they're racist. Can you imagine? No, you are, bro. You don't even believe that other races exist. And if they do, you try to make them live like you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's racist.
Fair, yeah.
That's the gross part about all of this. Of course, it compromises artistic integrity.
Hypocrisy.
But on top of that, it's not... not only do DEI initiatives not even believe in diversity, but they're the most racist ideology that they're a representation of the most racist ideology you could contrive. You know, I like this topic a lot. Like, I talk sometimes to other people about how, like, you know, old school Nazi racism, that would have it that the races are like different species, like monkeys and cows. They're so different that they're almost different species. They can't cohabitate. Liberal contemporary racism, the likes of which Kotaku preaches, is so much worse because it instead professes that the differences between us don't even exist.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we've discovered that everybody is actually like us. I think if there's one thing anybody takes away from this, it should be that you shouldn't permit people trying to browbeat you to participate in DEI initiatives to have the moral high ground. Because at the end of the day, that's they use difference as a slogan, but they don't actually believe it exists. Their anti-racism is to make sure that all people live like them. You know, all people exemplify the morality of a 21st century North American individualist. Right? It's just not.
It's ridiculous.
It is essentially racism. You know, so I think we should expect that people remain different, artistic works remain different, and there's no such thing as...
they should be celebrated, that difference,
There's no universal society. Yeah. There's no universal human type. Difference is real. It exists, and that's fine, right? There's not one thing
for everyone.
No, there can't be. There can't be unless what distinguishes us is fake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then there can be something for everyone. But until that day, no, there can't, you know? And that's good, man. That's good. I think it's good. Yeah. You know, you can get into the reasons why, like, it can't even be possible for... Maybe it's worth saying too that it's not a matter of race, of course. I think that that almost seems like too tacky to even remark on. Nobody cares about race or thinks that because of your skin color you shouldn't be in something or you can't enjoy something. But culture is a different story altogether, of course. Yeah. You coming from if you're from Japan and you're from California, your view of certain social issues will be radically different. Very different. That's fine, at least insofar as artworks are concerned. Your demand that comport to your morality is truly putrescent. That's racist, bro. Right? That's something we should push back on. You shouldn't let people tell you you're racist for not wanting to make everything comport with your morality. You know, it's the other way around.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's the problem with Sweet Baby Inc. It's weird imperialist ideology, and it's the way that consultancy firms in general violate artistic integrity, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
It should go away with the rest of them.
Yeah. It's not about consumerism, and consumerism is perhaps what got us here, I think.
Yeah.
You know? The idea that we should listen to other people about our art. But in any case, maybe we should leave it there, eh?
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for tuning in. That was a bit of a heavier discussion, but I like these topics.
Yeah. It's all relevant to what's going on in the industry right now.
Here's to a better future, eh?
Hopefully. I think we're going to pivot from here. So let's hope for it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.